Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Notice is hereby given that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, the laws of 1975, notice of this meeting has been sent to all school offices, officially designated newspapers, filed with the Township Clerk, and posted in the Board of Education office 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Roll call, please.
Certainly. Mrs. Berkowitz?
Here.
Mrs. Pintarelli?
Here.
Mrs. Rothenberg?
Here.
Mrs. Sanande?
Here.
Mr. Rossini?
Here. Flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to swear in Mrs. Asor. So if you would follow along in your board agenda and repeat after me, please. I, Jamie Asor,
I, Jamie Asor,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I, Jamie Asor,
I, Jamie Asor,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
for the office of member of the Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to R.S.19:4-1.
and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to R.S.19:4-1,
Nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:2-1.
nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:2-1,
And that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it's time for our board president's report. Ms. Asor, welcome, and I hope you enjoy it. With regard to my report, I'm going to keep it brief because I know we have a big district assessment report. I will just mention that the teachers yesterday engaged in, I think, some pretty good intensive training on certain things, including Linkit training, Tutor Me, and a number of other things that are just going to, I think, continue to improve our district. Apart from that, I really don't have much to add, and I'm going to pass it or go straight to the committee reports. Buildings and grounds, there's a vacancy, but do we have any updates on the buildings and grounds?
Yes, we're actually going to look to have a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting next week, so we'll reach out to the committee members, and construction is moving along.
Okay, that's good. Moving along is good. Communication and policies, Mrs. Sanande.
Yep. We had a meeting tonight, right before this meeting. We discussed policies on communication. There will be several policies and regulations coming up on the next agenda for the November board meeting, many of which are mandated, most of which are revised, but there's a few new ones as well. So look out on the November agenda for those policies and regulations. And then we discussed communication in general, Ms. Signori's emails to the community.
Okay, thank you. Curriculum and technology, Mrs. Rothenberg.
We had a meeting at the lab before the last board meeting, which I reported out, and then today Ms. Dowling will be presenting the district assessment report.
Okay, thank you. Finance, Mrs. Pintarelli.
Nothing to report tonight.
With regard to negotiations, I have nothing to report right now. And back to you, Mrs. Pintarelli, on personnel matters.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Please take note of the committee meeting schedule. That's in the agenda. That's coming up. And then we're going to talk about agenda items only, public comments on agenda items only. The Rivervale Board of Education is committed to encouraging the citizens of Rivervale and employees of the Rivervale School District to speak directly to board trustees. In order to facilitate this communication, residents and employees are requested, 1, to sign in before speaking, 2, to maintain an appropriate sense of decorum, and 3, to limit their remarks to no more than 5 minutes. The board will also take under advisement the written comments and opinions of non-residents that are submitted to the board secretary. Being mindful of its responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of meetings, the board retains the right to rule on such matters as the speaker's right to address the board, as well as the appropriateness of the subject being presented. The board's decision in such matters is final. The board also reminds all members of the public that while it subscribes without reservation to the principle of keeping the community informed by policy and law, it cannot allow public discussion of personnel matters, nor can trustees comment on any current or pending litigation. If a matter concerning an employee of the Rivervale Public Schools is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal or the superintendent of schools by telephone, letter, or email. Okay, I'm going to open the meeting to public comments on agenda items only at 7:08. Okay. It doesn't appear that anybody wants to make a comment on the agenda items, so the meeting will be closed at 7:08 on public comments. And now I'm going to move to the heart of the show tonight, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So tonight we'll present the district assessment report based on last spring's NJSLA testing results. We will also report the WIDA and the DLM scores where possible. Reporting these results is a state-mandated requirement and the first standardized test results since the 2018-19 school year due to the disruptions caused by the pandemic. Although the mandate only requires us to present the 2022 spring results, we feel it is important to discuss a much broader scope of student achievement given the circumstances of the past few years. Tonight, we will discuss student achievement in Rivervale, as well as at the national level and state levels. These are really the first set of standardized data since the pandemic, which is to provide a snapshot of how COVID disruptions may have affected student achievement locally and across our country. We took an early, proactive approach to addressing learning challenges due to COVID immediately following the school closures in 2020. We felt if we waited until this school year for these standardized test results to come in, we would have lost too much valuable instructional time for our students. Our first educational initiative to address learning challenges for our students was the Summer Learning Academy, which was offered to all students during the summer of 2021. Additionally, we engaged in a process called curriculum compacting, which helped address previous school year standards and move them to the following year in order to close any potential learning gaps. We analyzed internal data over the last few years and made any curricular and instructional changes and supported teachers and thus students by working with math and literacy consultants to enhance the learning experiences in the classroom. Many of these initiatives continue for this school year, as well as additional educational support. Tonight, you will hear about some of these new supports for our students and how we can strengthen the home and school connection. I hope you enjoy the presentation as much as Ms. Dowling and I enjoyed putting it together. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our Supervisor of Curriculum Instruction, Mrs. Kim Dowling.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here for the district assessment report. This is the first assessment report of 2 that we will have this school year, and I will talk a little bit later about the second one that is coming soon to a board meeting near you. This year, we started our analysis a little bit different, as Mrs. Signoria was saying, and we wanted to really say, we can't improve something that we don't measure. So we looked at the national report card to see we are only going to be able to rectify if we look across the board on a broader span. And the declines across the nation really sparked interest with Mrs. Signoria and I, and we started looking at different benchmark assessments and different ways where we can monitor the progress of our students well before this even came out. But if you look at the national report card, declines in math and reading scores for 9-year-olds are a historic and sometimes unprecedented according to the nation's first report card since the pandemic. The results also represent the first ever decline in mathematics and the largest drop in reading since the 1990s. The scores fell in all 5 percentiles, the 10th, the 25th, 50th, 75th, and 90th. And it's no surprise that the declines were the greatest for the students that struggle the most and in that 10th percentile. After looking at this, we were very interested to see our students' assessments, so we did not wait for the NJSLA to come out. We have been assessing our students over the last 2 years more than we ever had to monitor their progress and to make sure that we are closing in on those gaps caused by the pandemic. We use different types of assessments in Rivervale, not just the NJSLA. The NJSLA is one piece of our students' profile. We use formative assessments to drive instruction, TC levels, Linkit benchmarks, which we're going to talk a lot about later on in the presentations, IXL math, exit tickets, etc. We also use standard tests and quizzes and trimester exams in our classes. Also, some students just don't perform well on tests, so we give them an opportunity to show their mastery in a different way. We use assessments such as plays and curriculum showcases, art shows, and labs. Just a little bit of history on the assessment before we get into our scores. This is only the second administration of NJSLA for our students. I know it feels like we've taken this many more times, but it's really only the second time in 2022. 2019 was the first administration of NJSLA. In 2018, it was still Park. So it is only the second time, and our students took this assessment in ELA, mathematics, and science. Our students in grades 3 through 8 took the assessment in ELA and math, and our students in grades 5 and 8 were administered the assessment in science, and of course, the end course in algebra as well. When you received your parent score reports or the individual student reports in the mail, there is a link on there, understandthescore.org, or now it's called New Meridian, but that link will take you right to New Meridian, and that's what it is now called. And it gives parents a little bit more of an in-depth understanding of their child's scores. It goes into sub-scores and subtests, and it gives you a little bit FAQ of any questions that you might have on your child's score report. So that's a really good resource for any parents to visit should they have any questions. They also have some released items on that site from previous NJSLA exams, not yet from the 2022. We're waiting kind of patiently for those, but they do have other information regarding the score. It might help you understand your child's report a little bit better. The NJSLA performance levels did not change this school year. It is still levels 5 through 1, 5 being exceeding expectations, 4 being meeting grade level expectations, 3 approaching grade level expectations, so those students who are right there, not yet meeting but almost, level 2 partially meeting grade level expectations, and level 1, those students who are not yet meeting grade level expectations. We're going to go through now our ELA and our math scores in comparison to New Jersey as a state. We just talked about the nation's report card, so now we're going to talk about how our students performed in comparison with grade level peers in the state. So students in grade 3, we had 96 students complete the ELA portion of NJSLA. 62.5% of our students met or exceeded expectation as compared to 42.4% of the state. In grade 4, we had 111 students complete the assessment. 78.4% of our students met or exceeded expectations as compared to 49.4% of the state. In grade 5, we had 119 students complete the assessment. 67.2% met or exceeded as compared to 49.6% across the state. In grade 6, 105 students completed the assessment. 64.8% of those students met or exceeded as compared to 47.5%. In grade 7, we had 115 students complete the grade 7 ELA. 69.6% met or exceeded as compared to 52.7% across the state. And in grade 8, we had 130 students complete the ELA portion, 68.5% met or exceeded, as compared to 51.3% across the state. The next slide we're going to talk about is mathematics. In grade 3, again, 96 students took the assessment. 78% of our students met or exceeded, as compared to 45% across the state. In grade 4, 111 students completed the math portion. 73.9% met or exceeded, in comparison to 39.4% across the state. In grade 5, 120 students completed the assessment. 60% met or exceeded, in comparison to 36.1% across the state. In grade 6, 105 students completed the assessment. 55.2% met or exceeded, in comparison to 31.3% of 6th grade students across the state. In grade 7, 115 students completed the assessment. 60.9% met or exceeded, in comparison to 34.1% across the state. Grade 8 is a little bit different because our students are divided into students who are taking the grade 8 course or Algebra 1. So students who were taking the grade 8 course in the spring of last year, we had 61 students, 36.1% met or exceeded, in comparison to 15% across the state. Algebra 1, we had 68 students complete the assessment, 97.1% met or exceeded, in comparison to 34.8% across the state. The next few slides, I'm actually not going to go through in depth. It is all of the subgroups. They're pretty much compliance slides that we have for the state. In every content area for every grade level, we have to report out on the subgroups for that specific grade level. This is going to be up on the website tomorrow, and I'm going to walk you through where you can find it a little bit later on in the presentation. If you choose to go on, you can look at these individually, in depth, and at your leisure. And it goes through ELA, math, and Algebra 1. When we look at data, I just threw a lot of numbers at you, and those numbers really don't mean a whole lot unless you're looking at the questions to guide that data. What are we going to do with this? We can't improve it if we don't measure it, and if it's just going to sit here and collect dust, what is the point? And we have been doing data analysis in Rivervale in depth the last 2 years, especially the last 2 years. How are we going to use this? Well, we're going to use the district evidence report, which I'm going to show you in, I believe it's the next slide. We are using student class rosters, released items from New Meridian. We've been using them over the last couple of years in the classrooms, aligning them with the curriculum so the students can see the types of questions that are on the assessments, and our students who are showing mastery and standards in the classroom and that are not showing mastery and standards on the NJSLA, looking to see why. How is it being asked in the classroom in comparison to how it is asked on the assessment? How are we going to use this for curriculum alignment, to look at gaps in our curriculum? When are we teaching things? How often are we teaching things? How long are we spending on specific topics and standards? When is it happening throughout the school year? What resources are we using? All questions to guide this analysis of how we can grow, how we can improve, because that's always the goal, is to be better than we were yesterday, last month, and last year. We also have a lot of staff feedback, especially this year. We've built in a structure, which we're going to talk about, for staff feedback. And using Start Strong data, our Link It benchmark data, and our internal assessments with the lens for instructional decision making. As I was just discussing, this is what an evidence report looks like that we receive from Pearson. And just to explain it a little bit, the blue is the state, and that yellowish green dot, that is Rivervale. And on the bottom across, horizontally, are all the different standards that were assessed on the NJSLA. This is an example for grade 5 math. This is what I wait for when I get the NJSLA results, because this is telling me something, not just a number. This is showing me how we performed against the state. And I look at those dots that are close to the blue and all of the dots that are below the blue. As you will see that we don't have anything below the state in grade 5 mathematics for this year, but sometimes we do. So I take a look at these standards And then not only do I look at these and we present them to the teachers and we talk about these standards, we then look at the standards that we missed or were close to the state in the previous NJSLA. Now, we only had one other. So we looked at data then from 2019. And we took a look at the standards that we missed or were close to missing this year in comparison to the standards that we missed or that we were close to missing in 2019. Anything that we missed in both years, we highlighted in green. And we had conversations about why. Why do we think this is happening? Let's talk about this trend. How long do we spend on this standard? What do the questions look like? What does it look like in our Big Ideas book? What does it look like in our curriculum? Do we have rich tasks around these standards? Asking ourselves the important questions to make sure that our students can master this skill. Before we had Link It, this was something that we would have done internally just using the district evidence reports. But because we have Link It now, we really can hone in on the data and take a deeper dive in. Yesterday, we were able to meet with the staff and not only look at this information, but then look at the Link It Form C benchmarks from last year and look at the standards that the same grade level of students had trouble with. So we were able to take a look at these in comparison with the standards on NJSLA and see if anything was similar. You'll notice the last standard on this page, 5NFB, is the standard that was in green on the form before. So we're seeing that the linkets are very predictive of how our students are performing and where those gaps are. So yesterday we spent some time looking at the curriculum and seeing, okay, let's talk about this standard. We know we need more. What kind of resources can we pull from? And we're going to be continuing this work all year with Link It benchmarks and with the progress monitoring tool that it offers for us. This is the important work. This is what we can do to make sure that our students continue to grow. As I was just talking about with Link It, previously we had used Renaissance assessments in ELA and math in K through 8 as our progress monitoring tool here in Rivervale. Last year, we piloted the Link It benchmark assessments, and we found that the reports that Link It gave us were much more in-depth and better for instructional purposes than the reports that we were receiving from Renaissance. So we have decided to move forward with Link It for this school year. And our students are actually in the process right now of completing Benchmark A, their fall benchmark. And just like Renaissance, they'll be completing benchmarks in the fall, the winter, and the spring. But unlike Renaissance, we're going to be taking this data and the progress monitoring tool in Link It, and we have formed a structure in our classes this year where we have built in periods at the elementary school called these flex Link It groups, where teachers are able to go into Link It, and not just using Link It, and also their benchmark assessments that we use in the classroom, any math assessments or formative assessments that they're using in ELA as well, because we built in the structure for ELA as well. But take this data and really use it, not just let it sit there. We built in a structure where teachers were going to have time at faculty meetings to look at take a deeper dive into the data, create lessons, find resources on the specific standards, and then Link It has in its platform a progress monitoring tool where teachers can look at the standards as I just showed you, break it up by student, create these groupings, reteach it, and then go back into Link It and reassess just that one standard to make sure that our students are growing. Also, for transparency purposes and full disclosure, we were really hoping to have this ready to go tomorrow, and we do have this ready to go tomorrow. Unfortunately, Link It has a couple things that they still need to upload into their platform before we can send this out to parents, but coming soon, I promise. We recognized that with Renaissance, it wasn't as transparent as some parents would have liked it to be. And parents need to be able to see how their students are performing at home to really bridge that homeschool connection. And so we decided that we are going to be utilizing something called the Parent Observer accounts in Link It. Hopefully this will come out and you will see this in the next couple of weeks. You will be receiving information from the tech department that will be showing exactly what and how to register yourself for a Linkit account, a parent account, and you will get notifications whenever your children take a Linkit benchmark assessment. And when the assessment is completed, you as a parent can log in, see your child's score, how they performed against the class, and the specific standards that your child did well on, and the standards that your child needs to are identified as standards or areas of growth. If you log into rivervaleschools.com and then go to Parent Resources and the curriculum website, this is not there yet. It will be up as soon as we are ready to send out the parent portal information, but you will find this here in case you ever need to see it. It is information on how to set up your account, but the one thing that is very, very, very important to know is that these benchmarks assess on standards for the grade level, meaning your students are taking an assessment on standards that they might not yet have been taught. So if you see those standards in the red, please don't panic. Some of them they haven't learned yet. Other standards, our teachers are taking them and saying, well, I did teach this, and they should know this. So this is what I'm going to use during that flex time. If you scroll down, you're going to have step-by-step directions on how to access your child's report. And there is additional information on the bottom for parent resources. There is a 9-minute tutorial should you lose the email that you get from our tech department on how to log in. And if you are not a tutorial video person, you can also see screenshots. So everything will be on the website for you as soon as we get the go-ahead, the green light from Linkit. We're excited about using that this year. Additionally, in the spring, a population of students it was administered the DLM, or the Dynamic Learning Maps assessment. This is assessment that some of our special ed students take. They do take this in ELA, mathematics, and science in the appropriate grade levels as well. So science is also administered in 5 and 8 to those students who take the DLM instead or in place of the NJSLA. And their grading on emerging, approaching, at target, or advanced. So their grading is a little bit different than NJSLA's benchmarks. However, we cannot report out on the scores for the students in grades 3, 4, and 5 because we have a population of less than 10 that took this assessment, and for FERPA protections, we cannot report out on the scores. Same thing for math. The conceptual areas that are tested are number structures, area, perimeter, volume, data, patterns, calculating accurately or procedural fluency, measurement, and operations for solving problems. The grading is the same, emerging, approaching, at target, and advanced, but we cannot report out on these scores because, again, we had a population of less than 10 that took this assessment. Same in science, earth and space science, physical science, and life science, but we had a population of less than 10 students that took this assessment, so we will not be reporting out on scores. Similarly, our ELL population, it takes an assessment called the WIDA Access in the spring, and those scores are graded by 1 through 6 scale. And students who score between a 4.5 and a 6 are considered for exiting our ESL program in district. But again, we did not have a population of more than 10 that took this assessment, so we will not be reporting out on these scores as well. We will be reporting out on NJSLA Science, however. The tested areas for NJSLA Science are Earth and Space Science, Life Science, Physical Science, and then we have investigating practices, sense-making practices, and critiquing practices, all part of this assessment for the NJSLA. We just went over for the engineering practices. The performance levels for science are different than they are on the ELA and math, from not yet meeting to exceeding. On science, level 1 is considered minimal understanding. Level 2 is considered limited grade level understanding. Level 3 is appropriate grade level understanding. And level 4 it's considered having advanced understanding. Our students in grade 5 and grade 8 were administered the NJSLA Science Assessment. In grade 5, 50.8% of our students met or exceeded or understood advanced understanding, and 25.5% as compared to the state. Underneath is the subgroups, should you wish to take a look at those once it is posted. And in grade 8, we had 130 students complete this assessment, 33.8 were considered as proficient or advanced, as compared to 15.6% across the state. We have implemented a lot of interventions with math and ELA over the last few years. We started this actually even before the pandemic hit. When we looked at our 2019 NJSLA scores, that's really when we started this work, taking a deeper dive into the curriculum, into our resources, and asking ourselves, what do we need more of and what do we need less of? And how can we get there? Staff was given the list of standards that we just went over with you, not only with the NJSLA evidence reports, but also with Linkit benchmarks. We are utilizing our regional curriculum coordinator as well, Alyssa Merritt. Her and I have been working with the staff to really align rich tasks and NJSLA released items to our curriculum to make sure that our students are being exposed to those types of questions throughout the year and not just rushing right before the administration of the assessment. Our staff has been working with a math consultant who has been spending time on those same things and in the New Meridian site with the staff. And this year she's spending a lot of time coaching. So that's kind of the natural progression, moving from PD to more of a coaching model where she's in the classrooms with our staff and with our students, looking at what we're doing and providing supplemental information or suggestions for us moving forward. And of course, we're going to continue with the standards of mathematical practice. Additionally, we have purchased and are going to continue with Freckle Math. We are going to be continuing with IXL. New Meridian is a free site, something that we are going to be continuing using with our staff. A certain population of our students is also using Touch Math, something that we purchased a couple of years ago. And we also purchased Bridges and a new math series. We are year 2 of implementation, Big Ideas, and continuing with Imagining Learning for our ELL population. We talked a lot about Linkit. We're also using AimsWeb Plus this year for our kindergarten students. Linkit we're using for benchmarking 1 through 8. And we'll start that in the middle of kindergarten, but we are going to be using AimsWeb for the progress monitoring tool for our kindergarten students. And that's going to be starting in the next couple of weeks with our kindergarten teachers. We're also using interventions for ELA. We can continue our work with our literacy consultant. She spent a lot of time last year on Patterns of Power, which is our new grammar program with our staff. And this year she's going to be continuing that work, but also focusing on differentiation and using short reads for guided instruction and further individualized instruction in our upper elementary classrooms, and creating these individualized conferring kits for our primary classrooms, and continuing work with the curriculum with our middle school ELA teachers as well. Next steps, because we can always be better. That is the goal. And we've been working, there is work to do. We know that, we're on it. Our teachers are excited to do it. We're excited to do it with them. So we're in the curriculum, we're reviewing the standards, we're reviewing our pacing guides, we're making sure that there's adequate and ample time for everything. We've increased instruction in both math and ELA. We've included 2 additional periods, these Linkit Flex periods for ELA twice a week and math twice a week at our elementary level, and infusing this work into the instruction at the middle school level. Year 2 of Bridges and Big Ideas. We're having PLCs at both elementary schools on mathematics instruction and data analysis. We just spoke about the Linkit periods, and we're going to be continuing working with the math consultant and the ELA consultant. Our road to success is always under construction, so we are going to continue this work. And lastly, we are really excited to implement TutorMe. After looking at all of this data, looking at our scores over the last couple of years, looking at our benchmark assessments, progress monitoring our students, we thought it would be a really nice connection with home for our students to be able to log on for free at any time after school hours and connect within 60 seconds to a tutor in mathematics. This is going to be open for all of our students in grades 3 through 8. It is 24/7, but after school. And it is, you can choose your favorite tutors. So if a child goes on and works with somebody that he or she loves, you can choose to work with that tutor specifically again. Or if you didn't have a good experience, you can choose to work with somebody else. You can share your screen with the tutor, so it's adaptable with our Big Ideas platform, with our Bridges platform. If a student has homework, you can log in and say, I'm having trouble with this. Or better yet, as a parent, you will have access to Linkit benchmark data and the standards that your child is missing. You can take that and have your child work with a tutor on specific standards. It's really bridging that. And within seconds, within 60 seconds, your child will be connected to somebody that can help him or her. I know personally, my daughter is home, not with me, and she's with my mom, who learned math very differently. And I come home every day and math is not done because my mom has no idea how to do it. So this would be great. For her to be able to log in and work with somebody, not have to wait for me to get home. So this is going to be a great asset. We are going to be sending this out this week, so you can start using it as soon as you get this link. It will be on your child's Canvas page, Canvas Observer account on the math part at the middle school, and on the general page for the students at the elementary school. And that is all. And like I said before, coming soon to a board meeting, probably in January, will be round 2 with our Start Strong data. And if anyone has any questions, I will take them at this time. Sure.
Are there any parameters for the tutoring? Is there time limits for the kids, maximum amount of time?
No. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Dowling. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was terrific. That concludes the superintendent's report and the presentation. So we'll move to the board secretary's report, please. Mrs. Ippolito.
Thank you. Just a mention to the board members and administration that are attending the New Jersey School Board's workshop. It's October 24th through the 27th. I handed out packets to you, so all your information is there. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Also in your packet is a flyer for the National School Boards Conference, which is in April, and that is in Orlando. So if anyone is interested, please let me know in advance. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to general resolutions G1 through G10. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion? Okay. Anything? No? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Certainly. Mrs. Asor?
So do I say yes if I'm in it, though?
You can abstain from G1 and then move
Okay,
on to the
I'll
rest.
abstain from G1 and yes to the rest. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Pintarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Rothenberg?
Yes.
Mrs. Sanande?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Rossini?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And now we'll move on to business resolutions B1 through B13. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And discussion? Anything? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Certainly. Mrs. Asor?
Yes.
Mrs. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Pintarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Rothenberg?
Yes.
Mrs. Sanande?
Yes, but I'll abstain from B12.
Certainly. Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Rossini?
Yes. Okay, moving on to personnel resolutions P1 through P13. Motion, please.
A motion.
Okay, good. And second, please.
I'll second.
And discussion, questions? Anything? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Certainly. Mrs. Asor?
Yes.
Mrs. Berkowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Pintarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Rothenberg?
Yes.
Mrs. Sanande?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
And Mr. Rossini?
Yes. Okay. So we'll move on to public comments on general items. The Rivervale Board of Education is committed to encouraging the citizens of Rivervale and employees of the Rivervale School District to speak directly to board trustees. In order to facilitate this communication, residents and employees are requested, 1, to sign in before speaking, 2, to maintain an appropriate sense of decorum, and 3, to limit their remarks to no more than 5 minutes. The board will also take under advisement the written comments and opinions of non-residents that are submitted to the board secretary. Being mindful of its responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of meetings, the board retains the right to rule on such matters as the speaker's right to address the board, as well as the appropriateness of the subject being presented. The board's decision in such matters is final. The board also reminds all members of the public that while it subscribes without reservation to the principle of keeping the community informed by policy and law, it cannot allow public discussion of personnel matters, nor can trustees comment on any current or pending litigation. If a matter concerning an employee of the Rivervale Public Schools is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal or the superintendent of schools by telephone, letter, or email. And with regard to general items and public comments, the meeting is open to the public at approximately 7:44. Here you go.
Hi, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I just have a question for Ms. Dowling. I'm sorry, I didn't think of this before. Are the NJSLA scores posted publicly for each district?
Yes.
Okay.
Every district has to by compliance, and my apologies for not stating this during the report. This will be uploaded also on our curriculum website, and it will be under assessments. There's a tab under there that's called District Assessment Report.
Okay.
Right now, it's last year's, but tomorrow it'll be this year's.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm just.
Yes, thank you for asking that. It is going to be up on our website under Parent Resources, Curriculum and Programming. There is a tab for assessments, and under there, there is a sub-tab called District Assessment Report. Right now is last year's is up on that, but tomorrow, this year's will be there.
Perfect. I'm just curious to know what surrounding districts, how they did. So where would I find that information?
So surrounding districts do post it publicly. If you go to their websites, probably maybe under curriculum. I'm not 100% sure where it is on their websites, but I know that it is posted.
Do you know if it's posted anywhere through NJSLA, maybe on their website or something, where there's just one location for everyone's now?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I know when we look, we go to each individual
Okay.
district.
Wow. All right. I just have a couple other questions in regards to the health curriculum. So we all received the Google form, and there were a lot of options for opting out. What is the plan for ensuring that children are going to be in the correct place at the right time and that no child ends up where they don't belong? Because it seems like there's a lot of options.
We've been spending a lot of time on this, and we've been meeting with the PE and health teachers. They have created their own internal spreadsheets. They have it listed on their lesson plans. They have it listed in Canvas to send students at the middle school Canvas messages, so it is discrete about who is missing which. We have just talked about, actually, with Ms. Merritt, our regional curriculum coordinator who helped create the health curriculum, talking about sending also a letter home to parents when your child will not be in that class. So you can remind your child, we will be reminding your child at the middle school. At the elementary level, similarly, they have created spreadsheets with specific names. Next to the name is a standard. Next to the standard is the lesson and the day that it's going to be taught. Because we needed to also ensure that we had a classroom and a teacher with those students at that time.
Okay, and that was my second question. What will the children be doing if they are opted out, and where will they be?
Sure. So if a child has opted out of the entire health curriculum, they are going to be working on PE standards. Yesterday, actually, the PE and health teachers spent the day working together to create kind of a plethora of lessons that they can do on PE for those students who have opted out of everything, and it is by grade level, so the teachers can pick, and it's different at the elementary, especially in the primary grades. We're dealing with some students that can't read, so we have some Go Noodles in there and different things for PE standards related. If it is a child who has opted out of a health standard but in other health standards, they will be doing work around the other health standards that they did not opt out of. And they will either be in the conference rooms with a teacher, in a classroom with a teacher. It kind of depends on the standard, because some standards we had more opt out than others.
Okay, perfect. And will there be some kind of a discussion with the kids who are in the classes where they're told not to repeat this information because other people are not comfortable with it? I know that doesn't go very far with middle schoolers. The information is going to be out there regardless. But will the children be told that what is learned in that class should stay in that class?
I know the teachers do have conversations with them about specifically more for sensitive material, but that has not been a specific conversation that we have had, but it's certainly something that we can look into for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like nobody else wants to make any comments, so I'm going to close it to public comments on general items at approximately 7:49. Okay, moving on. Anything under old business? Anybody? No. Anything under new business? Anyone? No. And are we going into closed session? Okay, so may I have a motion to go into closed section?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. And we're going into closed session. We're not going to take any action. That's right. We're not going to take any action, and we're not going to be coming back out. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you, Mrs. Dowling, for your presentation. It was very nice. And hope to see you next time.